Today, we welcome a woman whose work rises from the fertile ground of lived transformation. Kristen Crabtree is an author and certified divorce coach who reclaimed her identity after years of invisibility and now guides others to do the same. Through her framework like Paramour Paradox and Destination True You 2.0, she helps people return to their essence with clarity, courage, and compassion. In this conversation, we explore how rediscovering the self we buried long ago becomes the very source of inner calm and emotional freedom. Welcome to the show, Kristen. It's such an honor to have you.
Thank you, Anya. It's really a joy to be here.
Mhm. So, Kristen, when you speak about unearthing your true self, what does that process actually look like beneath the surface level idea of self discovery?
Okay, so I'll start with explaining the big picture of what I do, and then I will explain the process. So most of my work centers around helping people who've lost themselves, whether through a long marriage or burnout or life changes like empty nesting or retirement, or just the slow erosion that happens over time. And the backstory, the history is that I spent 22 years in a psychologically abusive relationship, and I've come out on the other side asking, or I came out on the other side asking the same question that everybody eventually hits, that existential question of who am I underneath all of this? And my book, Be the You That's More You Than You've Ever Been, looks at identity through a four body framework and a simple metaphor, archaeologist, artifact, and architect. And it's about excavating what's true, understanding what shaped us, and then rebuilding from the inside out to get to what I call your true you 2.0 self. And along with that, I'm also a certified divorce coach. I specialize in helping people leave manipulative relationships. And my ecosystem, Paramore Paradox, is the home base for all of it. So the reason I start with answering your question there is because there's um, the prevailing process is understanding who you are by answering questions, sometimes using direct questions and sometimes using exercises to be able to touch back in, make contact again with your true self. And your true self is the only one who has the answers. Nobody else does. So my job is not to tell people what to do, how to do it. It's really about using tools that I learned for myself to excavate that truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. And was there a moment in your own life when you realized that you had been living as a version of yourself that wasn't truly you?
Yes. So it really came about from experiencing or being the victim of manipulation and control. I went through trauma therapy finally at the age of 53, thinking I was too old to have it benefit me. But I went through trauma therapy, and during that, I healed enough that over the next 2 years, I started um, freeing myself from the ability to be manipulated. But the more clear I got um, that I wasn't being heard, the more anxious I became. So it's kind of funny. There's two stories that I like to share with people that are kind of connected, and they show that ripple effect. So you asked if there's one moment. It was kind of a culmination of little happenings. So a friend of mine introduced, or not introduced, but suggested I start listening to Audible, and I'd been shamed out of using it during my marriage. That small permission cracked something open because I started to listened to a lot of different things. And that same friend also suggested EMDR, which is a form of trauma therapy. And it took years for me to actually um, go to the EMDR therapist or start listening to relevant books on Audible. But those two um, openings created a place for the next openings to happen. So, about the same time as she was recommending Audible and the EMDR therapist, there was a random neighborhood bulletin board post about hairstylists in the area, and somebody recommended a hairstylist, and 2 years later, that hairstylist um, handed me the book Untamed by Glennon Doyle. And she said that it was amazing and that she thought I would really resonate with it because she had been hearing my stories about my marriage. And I had about a half-hour drive on my way home after the hair appointment. And because I was on Audible at that point, I listened to it on the way home. And the very first story about a cheetah, and I'll leave the teaser there, just cracked me open. It was really the first time I truly recognized my own story on a page. So those little moments are really what created the big shift that eventually led me to understand that I had adapted and changed because of external factors and that it would be impossible for me to get back to hearing my truth in the marriage that I was in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those realizations often arrive quietly but change everything. And I think listeners will connect with that turning point.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's hard sometimes to trace back the moments or the events that create the biggest shifts, but they're there. And I like exploring that in my book, Be the You That's More You Than You've Ever Been, um, because you do the book actually it's broken down in a very specific structured way, and each of the sections is the culmination of the experience, has a story that I call the web story. And the web story is a fictional story that takes a character through sort of a sliding doors event. On one side, they pick to continue to live the life the way they are. And on the other story, they make one tiny little change, just like listening to that book on audio on my way home. They make one tiny little change, and that little change creates ripples, but not just in their own life, but in the world. Because my hairstylist was recommended that book by a friend of hers, and who knows how her friend came about. So, actually, the little moment between my hairstylist friend and my hairstylist is what caused the ripple into my life. And so the web stories are really there to help illuminate that and to help give people the awareness and the sense of empowerment that what they do really matters.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 100%. And many people chase calm through external fixes. How does reconnecting with one's authentic identity create a deeper, more lasting inner calm?
That is a fantastic question because when I wrote this book, it was really from a place of I'm not the expert. I don't know your answers. I don't have a PhD. I don't do research. I mean, formal research. I do research, but not formal research. I'm not a therapist or a psychologist. What I am is a inner excavator of my own truth. And, um, people they're all day long, they're told what to do. And the real beauty, the real birthing comes from hearing those answers yourself. So, and that's where you get not just that calm, but that internal motivation to live out your truth, live out your mission, live out your passion. When I wake up in the morning, I can't wait to start my projects. And I tend to stay up until 11 o'clock at night just because I'm so energized and excited about what I'm doing that I don't want to stop. And it's not because I have some, motivational skill or some kind of discipline. It's really because I'm just so caught up in fulfilling my truth now that I can hear it. So, most self help books or personal development books give people a process of getting somewhere the author thinks they need to get or want to get, 7 steps to this or 10 steps to that. But they don't really help people identify what they really want, what's really important to them. And that's my mission and my passion. And it's because hearing that truth, hearing my truth, has made all the difference in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And what's the most common misconception people have about where calm actually comes from?
Well, I think like everything internal, people think it comes from an external place. Um, you know, I don't know how many people seek calm from meditation, but meditation in some form is really where to get it because it's what quiets you enough to hear and connect with that truth. Um, but I know in the past I have felt like calm needed to come from medication, to be quite frank. And if not prescription medication, then herbs or massage or acupuncture or running or something like that. And really, what it comes from, how you get that calm, is from quieting your noise enough to be able to hear who you really are. And once you've heard that, you become incredibly calm. People who don't meditate a lot of times don't meditate because they don't think they can. And I was absolutely one of those people. Before I got married, I was trying all different types of meditation, and I always felt inadequate. My mind always wandered so much, and it was so hard for me. When I left my marriage, I stumbled upon, after listening on Audible to a million different books about being manipulated and controlled. I finally got sick of that, and I started listening to an Audible book, by Dr. Joe Dispenza. It was called, Becoming Supernatural, and it was a random selection. I had never heard of him, didn't know the book, but I needed something else to listen to, and he teaches a meditative practice that really resonated for me. Now, I'm not specifically recommending his practice to people because now I don't do that. I do other meditations. I do a mindfulness meditation. I've created my own meditations that I actually listen to. So, not every meditation is right for every person or at every moment. But there's so many different meditative practices. Even just taking a walk in nature, but paying attention to things that you usually miss, or the rustle of leaves on the tree and the sound of your footsteps and your dog, their paws pitter-pattering next to you. Even that is a meditation. So exploring how to quiet your mind, maybe sometimes expand your awareness in your mind, is where calm comes from. But I think it's intimidating to people who haven't found the process that resonates for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And debunking those myths like helps listeners understand why their external strategies may not have worked and what might work instead.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah. And awareness is a core part of your work. How does awareness function as a form of medicine during self recovery?
Oh my gosh, awareness is the first step of everything. And it's part of quieting your mind. In order to have awareness, you really have to quiet your mind a little bit. So I guess quieting your mind is really the first step, but awareness is absolutely the second step. And it comes from quieting your mind, or working to quiet your mind. Like I said, noticing things that you don't usually notice. And what's interesting is as you become aware, so meaning you become aware of your behaviors, you become aware of your thoughts, you become aware of your emotions, you become aware of the world around you, you become aware of other people, just generally um, opening up your awareness. As you do that, you eventually become aware that you are aware. And that's where the big mind shift really occurs because that's when you start to feel that web, that something bigger than me feeling, which is so powerful and so potent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And is there a particular shift in awareness that tends to create the biggest transformation for your clients?
Probably, probably it's the awareness that our behavior is dictated by our emotions, which are dictated by our thoughts. And our experiences result from the behaviors. So it's really this cyclical pattern of recognizing I have a thought, I'm not worth anything. That causes an emotion, sadness, withdrawal, which causes a behavior, staying in your house instead of going out to a group gathering that you've been invited to, which creates an experience, being alone, being lonely, which causes a thought, see, nobody likes me, which causes an emotion. And you can see how that goes. So I think becoming aware of that loop that we get caught in so that we can break some part of the loop, and it can the loop break can actually occur at any one of those spots. It's just, again, making that small shift, which is what the web stories explore. So, um, the structure that I mentioned to the book is exploring your mental body, emotional body, physical body, and energy bodies, all in separate sections. And so the web stories look at, okay, let's make a tiny little change in our mental thought process, usually related to awareness. So you catch yourself thinking, oh, I'm not valuable. And then instead of going with the normal emotion, you make a modification, a conscious, intentional, deliberate modification to where you would have gone. But that awareness, that shift could just as easily happen in the next step, the feeling step. Oh, I feel really terrible about myself. Why? Oh, that's right. I had that feeling. I mean, I had that thought. And then you go, oh, I had that thought because of that experience. And I had that experience because of my behavior. And so that pivot point can really be along any of those spots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that kind of mental reorientation can feel like a doorway opening, and your insight will also help listeners notice those moments in themselves.
Absolutely. And that is my mission and my passion. So even if just one person starts to become aware of that loop, then I've done my job on this planet.
Yeah. And your support women moving from invisibility to authenticity. What emotional or psychological patterns tend to keep people hidden from themselves?
I think um, if I had to identify one thing, it would be I hate the word victim, but sort of falling victim to that inner chaos. Um, you know, if you're caught up in all of the both internal and external confusion or chaos or busyness, um, doing, then it's really hard um, psychologically to even know that something could be different and that you're in control of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And once someone recognizes those patterns, what's the first step towards dissolving them?
So the first step is being intentional and deliberate and conscious in the different parts of the loop. And I think that starts with really a decision to do something different. So the first step is being aware of the loop. It's like lifting that veil. Um, or in the matrix when all of a sudden you see, all the computer part of things. So it's, lifting that veil and then following that, it's making a decision to not get caught up in that loop anymore, at least as often as you can. I mean, we all do. Um, I do, but I catch myself a lot sooner and I don't stay in the loop as long. So it's not, I don't think it's impossible to be, perfect and all of that. But the objective is to become aware of it enough, early enough that you can make decisions, conscious, intentional, deliberate decisions to change whatever it is that is your stopping point.
Yeah, and naming these patterns brings them into the light. And your guidance obviously will give listeners a sense of direction towards liberation.
I like that word liberation. And yes, I really enjoyed talking with you. And again, if this conversation just touches one person and makes their life better, then I am so thrilled. They're welcome to reach out for any of the resources that I offer. And Anya, I will be providing you with a couple of freebies to offer your listeners. One of them is the meditations that I created. I call them experiences, mind expanding experiences, which help, I think, enhance that awareness. They're just little 10-minute guided things. And I will provide those free to your listeners. And then also in my book, the very first exercise is the Who Am I exercise. And I have a video series, again, very short, very brief, but that guides them through that exercise so they can start to uncover the part of them that is hidden. So those will be free. There's also a community that I'm developing called the Murmuration, and that will also be available for free. And the book is available on Amazon, which I will give you the link for that. And finally, I do have sort of a secondary business that helps with divorce coaching. And I will give you the link to that as well as Paramore Paradox. That's the full ecosystem.
Mhm. So, thank you so much for your grounded and illuminating conversation. If today's discussion stirred a desire to reconnect with the part of yourself that you have buried, let this be your moment to begin. Tune into your awareness, honor the truths that rise, and let your authentic self guide you towards the calm you have been seeking. Your inner harmony begins the moment you choose to meet yourself again.